We are back for another episode of MAASU Ask Advo podcast. Today, we have amazing guests here and I'll let them introduce themselves. But before I pass on the mic, did I even say my name? My name is Jenny. Did I say that? I don't know.
Okay. I don't think you did.
No. All right. My name is Jenny Tam, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am one of the MAASU advocacy chairs. And for my avocado dish, we are back. We are back with the original avocado dish. It's not even a dish. It is straight avocado, and then you fill it with sugar. Let me do that YouTube thing.
Pretty.
Okay. That's my dish. That's what I'll be eating.
I guess I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Yusuf, pronouns he, him, his. And for my avocado dish, I got this is a Indonesian type, what is it? Avocado drink called jus alpukat. And it's like a mix of crushed avocados, some milk, and I added some chocolate syrup in here. I'm gonna be sipping this throughout the entire podcast. Let's hope I finish it. Hope I don't. We'll see. Yeah. I forgot to mention I am a undergraduate second year at the U. There.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Nisa, pronoun she, her, hers. I'm a recent graduate from the U, and I also have the same drink as Yusuf, but I kind of made it differently. Same jus alpukat, but I crushed the avocados with a spoon because it's really ripe and I didn't need to use a blender. And then I put crushed ice in it and I just poured some chocolate milk over it. So it's kind of the same thing, but kind of not. But yeah, that's me.
So I've had the crushed avocado drink thing. Usually put condensed milk, but I've never tried it with chocolate milk or chocolate syrup. I love chocolate.
There are some versions of this with condensed milk too. I've had it with literally just crushed ice, avocados, and then with condensed milk and then with chocolate syrup. So and then the ice kind of just melts and that's how you drink it. I don't know.
There's a lot of variety, yeah.
Yeah.
I love chocolate. I should try it.
You really should. It's really good.
Hard.
So today we have Yusuf and Nisa here to explore the intersectionality between this East Asian narrative, Southeast Asian narrative, and the Muslim identity. And so those are very, very big and broad identities. So the stories and narratives that they'll be sharing might not perfectly fit everyone. And more specifically, they are Indonesian. I can pass y'all the mic to maybe share generally how navigating those two identities have been in the context of America and growing up in the education system and stuff.
Well, that's fine. I think that's interesting because both Yusuf and I kind of had different experiences with our Indonesian and Muslim identity growing up, or specifically Southeast Asian. I guess if we're going to speak on a more general term, Southeast Asian Muslim experience growing up. Well, because I don't know why I said well. That sounded like I was going to start a lecture or something. Oh my God. Hey. Sorry, I had something in my eye this entire time. And I know you're not supposed to touch your eyes, so please don't touch your eyes, you guys. COVID is going around. I promise you my hands are clean. Okay, that was completely derailed. Jenny, you can
oh my God. Really cut that off. I do the same. I pull on my eye to scratch it because I don't want to rub it. So
Yo.
Yeah. Okay, so I was born in Indonesia. My family and I moved around quite a bit, and then we moved to the US in 2008. Yeah, so when I was in third grade, I had spent some time before going to school in Indonesia and also in Germany. So I guess my experience with being a Muslim in all these different places varied a lot. Obviously, when I was in kindergarten in Germany, I didn't remember much, but when I was, a Muslim in Indonesia, it's a great time. Everyone's kind of like you, everyone's, we pray together, we'd fast together, this and that in school. Whereas when I moved to the US in like third grade, um, it was it was kind of like a much like it was not kind of it definitely was a much different experience. Like I didn't really have a lot of Muslim friends growing up. Even though I like went to a predominantly like Somali like school, um, I had I somehow got looped into like an Asian group of friends. It was me, like mostly an Asian group of friends. Like I had like the typical um like Asian like middle school experience with like, like Girls' Generation, anime, manga, all of that. I was in that. That was me, like I was bopping 2G with my friends in like middle school. But yeah, anyways, so me and my group of friends, two Buddhist Cambodian girls and then one Muslim Somali girl and myself, we have been friends since middle school, actually since like fifth grade, and then up until now, we're still really close friends. So that's kind of how I like to think of it when I was in middle school. Like I'm like the in between of like all of my friends. Like I have like my friend's Asian identity, and then I have like my other friends like Muslim identity. I'm like both of them in one person. I always thought of it like that was really funny to me growing up, but um, I guess like that was kind of how I balanced both of my identities as I grew up. And once I got into high school, we went to the same high school, but we all kind of drifted for a bit. And I started becoming friends with more um like I kind of had a bigger friend group and there weren't that many Asians or Muslims in the friend group. And I think I could easily say that like once I was in that group, I kind of felt that was when I felt the most like detached from my Muslim and like Asian identity. And I think what I kind of learned from all of this is that like the people that I surround myself, they like they build up my identity and kind of make me who I am, if that makes sense. There's definitely a better way to phrase that, but yeah, so that's me.
Yeah, I was born in the US, in contrary to Nisa. Yeah, kind of growing up, I had like a generally like a solid amount of like friends. And I think what is it? When I was in like kindergarten or something like that, I had some neighbors move in. They were Cambodian, of Cambodian descent, and we just hitched it off really well. We got along really well just because like we were neighbors and we were both Asian. And it was just a really good time. And honestly just kind of growing up, like I had a lot of friends from like different like cultures and like races, but most of them are, I guess, Asian. And like in elementary school wise, like a lot of the people at school that I talked with, like were those like my best Cambodian friends, like they were neighbors. We all went to the same school. And then just like everyone in general, like we everyone was good friends. Like race wasn't that really a big deal. In terms of like Muslim identity, like growing up in like elementary school, like I kind of kept that at home, to be honest, because like there weren't that many Muslim kids in like my school either. Yeah, it was predominantly like not non-Muslim, and just keeping it at home. I think at one point though, my mom wanted me to like start praying at school because like around that time it was like in the winter, and then like sunset would come sooner, so I had to like make some of the 5 daily prayers at school so I wouldn't miss them when sunset hit. And yeah, I think I was praying at one point, and it was a weird feeling, but like, and I think like, what is it, the substitute teacher, he's like, yo, stop doing your exercises, kid. And I'm like, yo, okay. I couldn't stop doing it because I was in the middle of prayer, but like it kind of hit wrong, but it's whatever. And I think like growing up, I think in like fifth grade or something, we were doing this activity, like sorting activity, where like it was kind of like icebreakers. And then I think like a question that like the teacher asked, like they'd ask a question, and then like if you identified with it, you'd like move to one side of the room, and then you move to another side of the room if you didn't. And then she's all like, yo, go to this side of the room if you celebrate Christmas. And then I was on the other side where I didn't, and that was the only one like in that class that didn't celebrate Christmas. And then I think that was the first moment I'm like, oh dang, I'm really like a minority here, like in terms of like Muslim identity and stuff. But like still in general, it didn't let me stop me from like getting along with everyone. We were all still good friends. I think in like middle school and like going through like middle school and high school, I generally like in school, I identified a lot with like the Asian group of friends, because like that Cambodian friend group, the Cambodian neighbor friends that I had, like they were like mutually friends with like everyone in the school, and like they kind of got me introduced to like all the Asian people. And just like we all just kind of identified with each other. We had like we like the same things, like I guess a lot of us were into gaming, cars, and like anime and Korean culture. And yeah, I really identified with like all those kids like growing up in high school. Like there weren't that many Muslim people in our high school either, or middle school. They were mostly Somali, but they weren't like practicing Muslims that I'd usually surround myself with. Like they weren't like showing their like Muslim identity in school. Like so I just gravitated towards like the Asian community in our middle and high school. And I think like to preserve my Muslim identity, like I obviously kept it at home. And like my dad kept us like more religious, like at home. Like, and I was honestly like, it was hard to incorporate that religious aspect in school because like there wasn't anyone like religious to be with. And I think the way that I kept my Muslim identity preserved, I think like I was at a gathering, there were some kids from my mosque, and like that friend group that I have, like we're still all like really close friends today. And just like being around them, like it really helped me like I guess navigate my Muslim identity more and like be more like proud of it. And just yeah, just like being with them, like I could be more like free like as my Muslim identity, and like they didn't really care too much about like if I was Asian or not. Like we were all like generally Muslim. They're all like generally like South Asian, Desi, and like Somali, and we all like really hitched it off. We were all really good friends. But yeah, just having that friend group to like let my Muslim identity like flourish, and then like having like my Asian friends in the high school where I could just be Asian and like preserve that side of me, it was pretty cool. So like just like it was honestly just keeping those two identities separate within like middle and high school. And then when college hit, like going to like a community college for PSEO and just going to college in general, I started seeing more of like both types of friend groups like in the same place. Like it was like whereas high school was just like everyone was like you knew the same people like growing out, like nobody like left or came in. But like college, like everyone in like the Twin Cities area that I knew like went to like the colleges that I went to. And just being able to like juggle those two in like the same place was like honestly a really good thing too. So I had a lot less like identity issue like as I grew up, and like finding the right people to surround myself with, like Nisa said, just like being around the right people in the right environment, that just helps to navigate that.
Can I actually add on to that point you made about like praying in school? Um, I like laughed because it was really funny to me and really silly that he thought you were exercising,
No,
but obviously it's not funny. like, I think for me one time it was so bad that like I like try to actually hide the fact that I had to pray at school. I like during like seventh hour, like 5 minutes before, not five, like 10 minutes before class would end. I had not 10 minutes because we weren't allowed to go 10 minutes before class, but like it's like 30 minutes before class would end. I'd ask my teacher if I could go to the bathroom. When really I'd like go and pray. And I did it so much, like I did it for like every like badminton game that I had. I used to play sports in high school, so like we'd have games afterwards. And like if we had a game, I'd have to pray before I go, and so I could get all like 5 daily prayers in. So like whenever we'd have a game, I'd like go and like I'd be gone for like the full 10 minutes to go and pray. And this happened maybe like 3 times a week. I got to a point where my math teacher, she was like, Nisa, you need to stop going out so much. And I was like, you need to stop going to the bathroom for so long. And I was like, it's not that big of a deal. Like kids go out, they go to the bathroom and it take, 5-10 minutes all the time. Like why, like what's the problem? I don't know what, I don't know what pushed her to do this, but like she ended up emailing my parents about it. She was like, yeah, your daughter keeps going to the bathroom for like really long periods when it wasn't even like 10 minutes. She emailed them and she was like what is she doing? Like, I don't know what she thought I was doing. Was that like, did she think I was like doing drugs or something? I don't know. But like, I was literally just praying. But yeah, so I told my parents, they like sat me down. They're like, what were you doing? Like my parents, I like didn't tell them that I was praying either. So I had to I told them, I was like, yeah, I was just praying. I was praying before like badminton games. And they're like, why didn't you just tell her? And I was like, I don't know why I didn't tell her. I think, like now looking back at it, like I still don't know why I didn't just tell her that I needed to go pray. Like, yeah, it was weird that she had to like, I don't know, go out of her way. And like, I don't want to say she was assuming the worst out of me, but like email my parents and ask them why I was taking so long to go to the bathroom. But like after that, I was like, why didn't I just tell her? Praying at school, that was definitely a challenge.
Yeah, praying in school like definitely is a big thing to like figure out too. I think like how you find it like awkward just bringing that up. Like I always have that like premonition to like, oh, yeah, it's just weird like bringing that up to like a higher up in like the US. And because like it's so different from like their normal culture like that they have here. With like a lot of my friends, this is going off on a tangent, but like my friends from like other schools, like my mosque friends, there was a big Islamic community at their school. Like they had a whole MSA and everything, like Muslim Student Association. Whereas my school, like there weren't like as many like willing to make an MSA. So yeah, I was kind of just alone in that sense. So I had to bring it up to I think my counselor. I'm like, yo, I need a place to pray. So like she let me use her office like between like some of my high school hours. I think like yeah, once you get older, like in college especially, like at the U, they have the Al Madina Cultural Center. Plug, that's my student group. But anyway, they have the room that they like let people pray in, and honestly, just like having like specific places and like the certain places there you can go. Yeah, just being able to like let prayer like be more integrated into like the daily schedule. That was like very convenient.
Well, first off, thank you for sharing. And like honestly, the part about the gym teachers and like just like navigating school sounds like so specifically the Christmas example. I feel like that was unnecessary. Like I felt like for that teacher to like that's just unnecessary. Like why did you do that? Like
Yeah, what did you gain from it?
what did the class gain from it? Did you dedicate lessons to talk about these different cultures? Like I don't understand.
I don't know.
That's just really upsetting. And like
It probably wasn't that big of a deal, like just getting to know like just the diversity in the class. But yeah, it did feel weird to be singled out. It probably wasn't their intention to like make me feel that like weird at the time, but it's microaggression. Oh,
and exactly, so I think it is a big deal because these microaggressions add up eventually, like they just like compound. Like it might have been just this like Christmas example, but then there's like not having a place to pray, like having that not even be acknowledged. And then Nisa, your teacher who just like was so nitpicky about the time that you had. Because I guess like for me, you were doing prayers, but I can also see it as like a gendered issue. Like between y'all's stories, you talked a lot about like this kind of like juggling or like balancing of your Muslim and Asian identity. And it always felt like in certain spaces you had to compromise parts. And I'm wondering how did you and if you ever felt like you were ever like not Muslim enough or like not Asian enough.
You know, it's funny because you took that straight out of our notes. Like literally we wrote down like not feeling, Muslim or Asian enough, like straight in our notes. Um,
uh,
yeah,
you
because
didn't
we
even
were
need
we were
to send
talking
it.
about yeah, I didn't even need to send it to you. But yeah, we were talking about how like a lot of times like Yusuf and I and our family, like our family members, we often get mistaken for like other races. Um, and like people just look at us and they're like what are they? You know, like my family often jokes that like, um, my dad's like this Chinese man is walking around with this like Hispanic woman, but they're kids. Like, who are they? Like, we can't tell what they look like. And it's like, I don't know. It's like that constant feeling of like having to, I guess like I like growing up, like in middle school and high school, I had this like constant feeling of having to like tell people I was Muslim, tell people that I was Southeast Asian, tell people that I was Indonesian. But like once I got into like college, once I like, was able to be surrounded by like both groups of people, like people who fit the same like intersectionality that I did, I kind of felt like I there's no point in having to define myself or like I'm not define like having to like explain myself to people. Like when I'm praying, it's like I think the reason why I like couldn't I couldn't bring myself to tell my teacher was because I had to explain to her first that I was Muslim because like I guess I should mention this when I was growing up, I didn't start wearing the hijab until I was in college, so I wasn't visibly Muslim until then. Um, I don't know if that's the correct term, and if not, I'm sorry, but I had to explain to her first that I was Muslim, and then explain to her what I was doing, and then explain to her why I was praying. And I think that like thought process of having to explain all of that and go through such lengths to tell her why I was going to the bathroom, like I was out of class for so long, like that was just like exhausting to me.
I think like I kind of went through that too, like just having to like explain myself. Like, I mean, I didn't feel like I looked like Muslim because it wasn't like you couldn't see that I'm Muslim unless like you knew my name. Like even then, like some people didn't know. And then like just like honestly like a little bit of the fear of like being judged, like because in the US like sometimes Muslims were looked down upon by like certain people, like with like the like with like I don't know like the premonition between like 9/11 and like ISIS and all that. So like just having to like explain myself like I'm Muslim and just like I guess like being anxious about like how people will react to that. That's kind of a sense. So like you're kind of like push yourself back, like you know what, nah, I'm just not gonna talk about it. Like how like in college, like how you had to like constantly explain yourself, like in like the early like K through 12 like years. I definitely like went through that too. Like I honestly like went up to like people like, yo guys, what race am I? And like I'd like make them guess, and honestly no one like guessed Indonesian because like it's such a minority here, but we can go into more depth in that later. But like yeah, it's not feeling more like between like both like sides of Asian and like Muslim. I think definitely in high school and like middle school, like there were some moments where like people didn't, because like Indonesian and like is like such a minority thing. So I think like one time in particular, like I went into like I was at my workplace and then like one of the employees there was like Somali. She's like a year younger than me. I was in like sophomore year of high school. And then she's all like, Yusuf, do you even pray? And I'm all like, what? Because like I told her I was Muslim, like I have a Muslim name. She's all like, you don't, if you're a Muslim, you have to be either like Arab or Somali. And I'm all like, huh? No, I'm Indonesian. She's like, how do you guys pray? Do you pray differently? And I'm like, no, we pray like just the way like everyone else prays, like in Islam. They're like, no, you have to be like either like Somali or like Arab. So you're Arab, right? And I'm like, what? No. Probably because like they didn't get like exposure to like other like races or like ethnicities within like the religion of Islam, because like it's so diverse. But like just like the minority, like the prominent like thing that people see in Muslims is like Arab or like Middle Eastern, and then like Somali, like especially in Minnesota, because like that's just the general majority of it. And yeah, again, I guess like also in I went to a lot of Islamic schools like growing up, and I guess like I was always like the minority, and I was just like the only Asian kid there. And I feel like I got bullied a lot. Is this kid Chinese or something? Because like they didn't know, like they probably haven't seen like an Indonesian Muslim. And that like those like experiences, I felt like if I have to be Muslim, I have to be either like Arab or like Somali or just like the general like races that like people see. And it was just kind of weird, like being a minority. And in terms of like Asian identity, like the Asian group of people I surrounded myself with, there were like a lot of East Asian and like Viet and Cambodian people. And I always like compared myself to like them and just like Asians in media, so like actors and stuff like that, especially like the Korean guys. Okay. But like just thinking about how like at the time I didn't feel like I looked Asian enough, to be honest. Like my hair didn't look that way, and like my skin and like my face shape was like wasn't very like defined as like what is it like G-Dragon from Big Bang or something. And yeah, just like I didn't feel like I looked Asian enough like growing up in that sense. So like, and comparing that myself to my friends too, they all had like straight hair. It was very like very thin, and they all had like smaller eyes. Like I felt like I had like really big eyes like growing up like as a kid compared to like most Asians. So like that in that sense I'm like, oh, I don't feel like Asian enough like compared to them. And like I didn't like in a Muslim, like I obviously knew I was Muslim, but like surrounding myself with like the other like Muslim people, it was kind of weird like being like the only like non-majority like Muslim race. Once I grew up and I attended this Indonesian Muslim conference called Muktamar, like Indonesian and Malaysian, and like going there and seeing more like people like myself. And like even before that I was part of a like an Indonesian like Muslim group called like Pengajian, in what is it, like in Minnesota, like we're like all the Indonesian like Muslims group, because like we're such a small minority and like we all gather like know each other generally in the state. So like those are like that was like a time where I could like meet people I knew like similar to myself, and like those two identities and the intersectionality. And then like going to Muktamar, like that like really opened my eyes to like how like all of the different like Indonesian / Malaysian Muslims in the United States, and seeing like more people like we all related to each other in some way, shape, or form, because we we're all like either like we were all Southeast Asian Muslims, and like we had like similar experiences growing up. So like finding like that kind of community was like really cool to see.
I always disliked having to go to Islamic school over the weekends because it was like, I don't know, like kids don't like to have to go to school like every day. But I went to so I grew up in Minneapolis, Somali community here. Shout out to them. Masjids would not be here. The mosques, masjid mosques, would not be here without them. The Muslim community here would not be so strong if it was not for them. But yeah, so I went to like I went to, I want to say it was predominantly East African Duxi is what they call it, Islamic school Duxi. And they were all just like very sweet, very welcoming, and like very nice to us, even though we were literally the only, like my sisters and I were the only family there that were not East African. Shout out to them, they're really nice.
I remember last time we talked, Nisa, you're talking about how you were saying a few things. One, that there's not a large Indonesian Muslim population here in the first place, right? And so in that, but also in like the Muslim community and in the Asian community, being Indonesian and being Indonesian in general, you felt like it feels like being the minority of minorities. And so I'm wondering if the both of you could speak to that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, after our last conversation, Yusuf and I kind of looked into some more Indonesian immigrants to the U.S.
We were doing a lot of research into like why like Indonesians are like such a minority in the U.S., and just like looking at like different explanations and statistics for it. Like Indonesians, like they don't usually like, whereas like most like East Asians or just like Southeast Asians like come to the US for like the government brings them here for like reasons like such as like refugees and stuff from like war. For the most part, when it comes to like Indonesians coming here, they come here for like schooling and like business and jobs, because like I think most of like the Indonesian students at the U, like just like not just Muslim Indonesians, just Indonesians in general, they're like a lot of international students that go to the U. They're just trying to finish up like grad school or just like undergrad studies. My dad, for example, like him and my mom got married in Indonesia and they lived there. And I think my dad like got a job first in Singapore. So they were living in Singapore for a bit. And then I think his department got like relocated to the US and they needed people to work in that facility. Yeah, it's mostly like them coming here for like business and work or school. So like not in the sense that like they're forced to come here in a refugee sense.
Yeah. Even then, I think Yusuf, you also read that like Indonesians trying to migrate to the US with a refugee status it's not easy to do because it's hard to like justify that. And also, yeah, my family came here for the same reasons. My dad got a job here and we all moved over here. I think there's also the you can't get a dual citizenship with the Indonesian passport or with Indonesian. You can't get a dual citizenship with Indonesia and the US or with Indonesia in any country really. So that makes it, again, like I guess speaking on Yusuf's like patriotism. In Indonesia, like a lot of people probably wouldn't want to, like let go of that and get citizenship somewhere else. One of the biggest reasons why there's not many Indonesians here. A lot of Indonesians here, they're in California, on the East Coast. There's really not a lot here in the Midwest at all.
Thinking about the audience of this podcast, but then just like in general, what are ways that, and I guess it'd be different for everyone, but that y'all feel like you would have appreciated being supported by your friends or like by other community members? what would have that looked like for y'all in particular? So I'm assuming everyone wants to be supported differently.
Yeah, I mean, like Muslims can be of any race, of any like ethnic group, like just understand that. And like, it's not weird to be Southeast Asian and Muslim at the same time. It's not weird to be East Asian and Muslim at the same time. It's not weird to be like European and Muslim at the same time. Like, that's like, I think the beauty of Islam is that like that people come from all parts of the world and you can find a predominant group of Muslims there. And that, like, just understanding that, you can be a religion and you can be a certain ethnic group and a certain race, that those two things, it's not one or the other. And also, like I mentioned this, like not having to like explain myself to my teachers, like I don't have to look Muslim for me to do to practice Islam, right? That's my input. What do you think, Yusuf?
There's like elitist, like not elitist, but like some races like see themselves better as others and just put down other people because of their race. Like there's racism in Islam, which is really unfortunate, even though it like promotes like diversity with like the national, like there are so many Muslims in the world. So like even as a Muslim, like just like accepting the fact that there's like, it's not just like Somalis or Arabs or Desis, there's more to it. Anyone can be Muslim. Like even like there are like converts out there that like can, like that were not born Muslim and they converted into Islam. Just like being accepting of them, even if you're like not in the majority of Muslims, you're still good enough to be like Muslim, or even in that sense. Also like in the sense of like just being accepting to other cultures. Like in the all Arab Islamic school that I went to, like they taught everything in Arabic, like literally all their packets and notes and were in Arabic. And I'm just like, I really felt like an outsider like at the time. So just like being inclusive of like other like identities, like in the institutions that you go to. Yeah, just like being inclusive in that sense and like like accommodating like everyone's needs and not just like towards the majority. But
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of masjids are actually going, more in the direction of being more inclusive and like having more like, English khutbahs and everything. But of course, like that's still obviously a problem in some some other masjids, of course.
And also like, I guess like I kind of faced a bit of like racism in the past. Not even that, but like I think like back in like 2014, that time when like ISIS was a big thing. I think like everyone kept screaming Allahu Akbar, which is like very the meaning of like they see it as like a terrorist war cry, because like that's kind of how it's portrayed in like media and like just videos like that people see like in the mainstream. Whereas like it for like us Muslims, it means like it's something like it's like a call to prayer, which is like very like near and dear to us. And just like they like my friends like who I called really close, like they knew I was Muslim, but they'd still like and they'd like be like that, like friendly like to me in that sense that I'm Muslim, but like at the same time like when they're like messing around with like each other, they'd like scream like they like scream like that phrase in that like terrorist like sense when I'm like still there, like, and they know that I'm Muslim. So like it felt kind of fake, to be honest. So like just like acknowledging your friends and like knowing that like they might take offense to something like some type of way. Just don't be racist, all right? Yeah, I don't know.
And xenophobic, it sounds like. So I'm wondering if there was like anything else that you would like to share, anything like that.
Okay, so there's actually one more thing that I wanted to talk about that I wasn't able to fully cover in the podcast. So I'll talk about it a bit more now, hopefully with a clear head as well. And I have my notes here in my hand. So if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at it to make sure that I'm touching on every point that I wanted to. But anyways, so I feel like, many Muslim countries have its own story with the hijab, and hijab kind of has its own place in the country, whether politically, culturally, and spiritually influenced. I kind of just thought, talking a bit about the hijab in Indonesia and a little bit about my experience with it growing up as well. This is all based on my own experience and my own observation, so I'll just preface that. And if anyone wants to correct me for any reason, I am totally open to hearing more about that, because, this podcast is all about educating one another, and I would love to hear more about other people's perspectives about this as well. So anyways, as I was growing up, I kind of noticed that a lot of the women in my family, my Muslim Indonesian family, a lot of the women started wearing the hijab at a certain point in my lifetime. And, from the moment when I was born to the present time to where I'm now, a lot more women in my family started wearing the hijab. And that's also apparent with, the general Muslim woman population in Indonesia. more women decided to wear the hijab. And, I've always wondered why that was the case. How did that come about and what led to it? So the experience with the woman in my family is one, and, generally just seeing Indonesian women that I know starting to wear the hijab more often. I was also talking to an Indonesian friend once, and she asked me why I decided to wear the hijab. And while we were having this conversation, she'd actually brought up that, a lot of the reasons that girls in Indonesia wear the hijab is because it's trendy. It's considered, cooler, hip, whatever you want to call it. And that, having the right intentions in wearing the hijab and how important that is, and hesitance in wearing the hijab because of that trend, and, avoiding that social influence in addition to wear the hijab, I mean. But anyways, so Yusuf and I were doing some research on this. I was told other things when I was asking my parents and other Indonesian elders that were around me, who were, around at the time. But according to our research, in 1998, after the fall of the Suharto regime, the Suharto regime, who was the second president of Indonesia, after the fall of his presidency, with the emergence of democracy, more women decided to wear the hijab, and more women were able to wear the hijab. And I was kind of just told other things by the people around me. I was told that there was just a shift, and women just decided to embrace religion, Islam, more. I thought that was really interesting. Take that as you will. If anyone would want to have any input on this, reach out to me. I would love to hear more again. And, just taking this knowledge, taking this perspective into account when I decided to wear the hijab and how I was influenced with external factors other than spiritual to wear the hijab and to become a hijabi. I thought a bit more about the cultural influence and how I was, seeing the women around me wear the hijab, seeing my family members wear the hijab. I kind of felt more comfortable wearing it as well. Seeing other people wear the hijab makes you more comfortable wearing the hijab, just kind of how most things work. I'm being very repetitive, but my mother started wearing the hijab when I was in middle school. My sister started wearing the hijab. My older sister started wearing the hijab when she started college, which is the same time when I started wearing the hijab as well, when I started college. So we both started wearing the hijab kind of as expected, by our parents, around, 17, 18, 19, when we go into college. I personally took that as a step to maturity. I took that as, me embracing Islam based on my own spirituality, and I've grown to learn enough about Islam, understand the hijab enough at this point that I can wear it for my own spiritual reasons. But that's not, I thought about it a bit, and I was like, that's not 100% true to say that it's only spiritual. I'm only wearing it for spiritual reasons, which, I would hope at one point in my life that I could wear 100% for spiritual reasons, right? But it's hard to say that there's no cultural and social influence in me wearing the hijab. And I'm sure that goes for many other, cultures, many other Muslim women around the world. So yeah, that's just my input on how I started wearing the hijab and in the hijab in Indonesia. And again, I'm not sure if I already mentioned this on the podcast, since I'm recording this afterwards, but the whole story with the math teacher and how I was kind of just scared to tell her that I was going to pray because I wasn't, visually, I didn't look Muslim. And, looking back at that now, I feel like now that I am, visually Muslim, I look like a Muslim since I wear the hijab, I would feel a lot more comfortable just straight up telling her, hey, I gotta go pray, that's just what I gotta do and have to explain myself less. And, the aspect of having to explain myself less, I am glad to have. But obviously, again, just going back to that, having to explain yourself is so unnecessary. And nobody needs that, which is really annoying. It gets really annoying and it's pretty out of line. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. And again, I would love to hear everybody else's opinions. And I know this is me speaking in a podcast, so it's not like a discussion format or anything, but please do share any information you would like to share with me, any corrections and whatnot. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a important aspect in part to talk about. And now all the podcast listeners know. I think it's in that way, I think the hijab and like those who wore it, which it sounds like are predominantly women, kind of made it a political act to like make a stance and like wear their hijab. So that's so powerful, I think.
I will say thank you for having me here. It was really fun to organize. I learned a lot in the process. Yusuf and I stayed up very late last night talking about this, and that was very fun. We learned a lot. So yeah, thank you, Jenny, for inviting me. Thank you, Yusuf, for inviting me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you both too. It was Jenny like reaching out to me especially for like the opportunity. It was really nice to have Nisa. Like, I'm glad you could like join us and like give like your side of the entire thing. Shout out MAASU. Y'all are great too. Like, I think I spoke at like the conference in the fall and it was really fun. But yeah.
Yeah, Yusuf did a workshop. So cool, so cool. But thank you both for being on here. And like honestly putting in so much energy to explain. And I know that y'all talked about how like that sucks, right? But so like thank you for that labor. And I hope that whoever like listens to this podcast really takes something away. And maybe, fingers crossed, cause less harm to other folks in the future. So thank you for that labor and your time and your research and your story. Just like thank you for being here.